Hi, this is Marsha.
And this is Kelly.
We are the 2U's of 2U's Fiber Adventures. Thanks for stopping by.
You'll hear about knitting, spinning, dyeing, crocheting, and just about anything else we can think of as a way to play with string.
We blog and post show notes at 2usfiberadventures.com.
And we invite you to join our 2U's Fiber Adventures group on Ravelry. I'm 100 Projects.
And I am Better in Motion.
We're both on Instagram and Ravelry, and we look forward to meeting you there.
Enjoy the episode.
Hello, this is Marsha. And
this is Kim.
And we're actually sitting in the car waiting for the Pentland Ferry to go over to the Orkneys. And we're a little late in our recording, but honestly, we've been so busy.
Very busy.
We've had not one single chance to record. So this is and we have about an hour and a half to wait till the ferry leaves. So we're going to get you caught up first on what we did in Inverness, which now seems a month ago.
Yes, it does. Because we did a really long drive between Inverness and today.
Mm-hmm. And we just finished our time at the Caithness Crafts Collective retreat. And we'll talk about that in another recording. So let's just catch everybody up on what we did in Inverness. So,
Day one.
Well, first of all, we have to say that we stayed at a really nice Airbnb, which was lovely, and really close to town. And our first night, which we thought was funny, that we had dinner at a Turkish restaurant.
Yes.
So if anybody goes to Inverness, it was called Espendos. I think that's how it was pronounced.
And it was our taxi driver that recommended it. And he was talking about takeout, and he goes, but the really good Turkish restaurant is.
Yes,
and
this restaurant.
We were wandering around Inverness and just happened to look up and go, oh, there's a restaurant.
Yeah. Anyway, so we had dinner there, and it was very good. And then kind of went back to our place and just collapsed a little bit because we had been traveling all day. So anyway, but day one, our first day in Inverness, was fantastic.
So we arrived and then got up and had a whiskey tour all planned, and the tour guide and owner of the company, Gavin Nicholson, came to our Airbnb and picked us up to start the day. So super easy to start the day.
Mm-hmm. We visited Cardew, McCallum, Glenfiddich, Aberlour, and Tomatin.
Tomatin. And the emphasis is on Tomatin.
Tomatin, yes. Okay. Anyway, we went there and we had lunch at Glenfiddich, and we both had haggis. I had the haggis with meat. Kim had the haggis.
Vegetarian
haggis, and they were excellent. And what really made it good was the whiskey sauce.
And it was beautifully presented with turnips on top, and then a layer of haggis, and then a layer of mashed potatoes. So it was beautifully presented, really fun to eat.
It was like a terrine, kind of. You could see the layers. It was delicious. But we have to give a shout out to Gavin. So if anybody comes to Inverness and they want a whiskey tour, I think we would highly recommend Gavin Nicholson of InvernessWhiskeyTours.com. And you can find him online and just email him ahead of time and set up a tour. Yeah,
we found him through TripAdvisor, and I think he also has something that goes by Inva Gordon Tours.
Yeah.
But you'll find him easily through TripAdvisor. And what we were saying is that we were the only two on the tour, but it was the driving to Speyside where we just asked him a lot of questions about traveling in Scotland. And he just he was just a wealth of information to give us guidance on, oh, sure, you can do this, and oh, that's doable, and things that we needed to talk to a local to really know.
And he gave us recommendations on a restaurant that we ate at the last night, which we'll get to that in a bit. But the other thing was great about the first day, well, having someone drive you for the whiskey tasting, you have to have someone drive you because they have very strict drinking laws. You cannot drink at all.
Yeah, zero tolerance.
Zero tolerance. So no drinking at all if you're driving. So it was nice to have him drive so we could taste. And it was also nice to have, before we picked up our rental car, to ride in the car with someone who knew the rules of the road, so we had a lot of time to ask him questions and watch what he was doing. So that was great. So highly recommend that. That was really, I think, one of the highlights so far of the trip was that tour with Gavin. So then the next day, day 2, oh, I should say the other thing before we go on to day 2, that night we were so full from the haggis that we really didn't eat dinner. Gavin had recommended a place called the Black Isle Brewing Company, and they have beer on tap, a rotating list of beers on tap, and pizzas. And we did not have pizza that night, but they have the restaurant was packed. But up on the roof, there's a secret garden, and it was really nice because even though it was pouring down rain, they have these wood covers and wood benches and chairs that you can sit in, so you're protected from the rain, and they had heaters. So we sat up there and had a nice conversation with a couple from Edinburgh that were actually planning their trip to the United States.
I thought they were from Inverness.
Oh, were they for Inverness?
Yeah, because she worked at the Loch.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said Edinburgh. I meant Inverness.
Okay.
Because we were in Inverness,
Yes.
And so we were talking to them about traveling in the United States and where they were planning on going. But then the next day, we got a taxi, and we're taken back to the airport where we picked up our rental car. That was an experience.
Yes.
Because we're in a Mercedes, and it's brand new.
There were like 200 miles on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And has lots of bells and whistles, and we could not figure out. There was an alarm going off, and we thought that the hood was open on the engine, and it was because there was an alarm going off, but we could not figure out how to open it up to get a good. So we had to go back to the rental company, and then we had to ask them how to get the GPS going it's not super fancy and not intuitive. But we've now, after how many days in the car, we've got a pretty good sense of the GPS. So what did we do? We went to Culloden that night.
Yes. Well, that afternoon.
That afternoon we went to Culloden after we picked up the car. And what would you say about that?
It was a very, it was serious, and because it was such a battle that the language that they used in it was very interesting. It was between the Jacobites and the government. Mm-hmm. It was not, English, Scot, or anything like that. Yeah. It was very much the government, and it kind of reminded me of going to the Vietnam Memorial mm-hmm. because of the loss of life. And it was a turning point for Scotland, that everything that had been very Scottish was diminished, mm-hmm. or there were retaliations from mm-hmm. the government for showing your Scottishness. And mm-hmm. so no more tartans could be shown, mm-hmm. and family clans had a hard time surviving. And
you couldn't speak the language.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was a wonderful history lesson, mm-hmm. In pictures and in experiential and walking on the battlefield. It's definitely worth going to, mm-hmm. and it is definitely a trek that many, many people go to.
Yeah, and very important, I think, for the Scottish people, to that battlefield, that area. So, what did we do? We had lunch there. Mm-hmm. And then we went back to our Airbnb and dropped off the car and walked into town. Just walked around Inverness, did some shopping. We bought shoes.
We did sandals. They were on sale.
Well, I have to say, I was really... So the company where we bought the shoes is Trotters.
Hotter.
Oh, Hotter. I wrote down Trotter. Believe it or not, we're looking at notes here. Hotter. And at home I get the New York Times, and a lot of times they have a catalog in there, and they talk about how comfortable those shoes are. And I was always been interested in ordering a pair, but was hesitant, because shoes, I think, are difficult to order online sometimes. Mm-hmm. So here was the Hotter store, and we went in there, and we tried on a couple different pairs, but we both ended up buying sandals. Kim bought a really cute pair of slip-ons, flip-flops, since we've been having all this conversation on Instagram about flip-flops, but with that goes, between your toes.
Your big toe and your next toe.
Yeah. And they're really cute, Kim, because they're kind of out of character.
Very out of character. Silvery and purple.
Yeah,
Very
they're-
sparkly.
Yeah, sparkly and flashy, but they're really cute.
And super comfortable on the cold floors of everywhere we've been staying. They have bare wood floors, and to have sandals so you can slip on and off are great.
And I bought a pair, not the same style, but they're in bright blue. Kind of a, like robin's egg blue kind of, or anyway, something like that. Anyway, they're very comfortable. I've not been wearing them, but they're very comfortable, and I was really interested to try on the shoes in that store and now get a pair. So, okay, then we have to talk about our dinner that night.
I don't even know where to begin. Well, so we have our GPS. We put it in. It looks like 20 minutes away, and we go along beautiful lanes. And we're still kind of new driving. But then we turn off the main road with a line down the middle of it and go onto single track, and start going up and up. And our GPS cuts out because it only had for that zip code. Yes.
It was, so what we did is I found this on, because we had booked an Airbnb sent me a message that there was
a Croft dinner.
And there's all these different experiences you can have, and one was a Croft family dinner, and a Croft house is basically a farmhouse.
Yes.
And so we thought that sounded really interesting, so we signed up for it, and lovely people.
Yes, the host and hostess.
Hostess, lovely, lovely people, nice home, but we struggled to get there, and it was raining.
At times.
Yeah, on and off raining, and we stopped and asked this young man who didn't, he was so surprised to have these two women asking, how do we find the Croft house? Well, you're surrounded by there's hundreds of them,
And then there was a non-profit arts organization called the Writers' House, and we weren't really sure, and so we stopped in their parking lot, and this lovely woman comes out, and an apron goes, welcome, who are you?
Yeah, and we said, we're here for the dinner, and she goes, oh, well, who are you? And then we said who we are, and she says, well, I don't know who you are. Make a long story short, she was having a dinner party, and...
For a writer's group.
Yes, and so, but she's now worried because she doesn't have these two names on her list, and so it was actually really funny. But she was very nice because she called, because one of our issues is we don't have cell service, so so she was kind enough to call and find out where we needed to go, and so we finally got there, and it was an interesting evening. I think we were a little tired though.
Yes, we were.
Yeah, and
it just kind of went on, and I think what surprised us is that, okay, 6 of us, 6 guests, and 2 other Americans, and then another couple from Indonesia. But I guess it was just a different topic matter, and for 8 strangers to get together and talk and not talk about politics or anything it
kind of got a little off. I think that one person kind of can set a conversation going down a path, and we'll just be honest, they ended up, there was a couple that was the wife was pregnant, and it started this whole conversation about pregnancy
and children,
and
we stayed there pretty much the whole evening
and talking in way too much detail about childbirth and raising children. It's just too much detail, and intimate detail for a dinner party with strangers. So we were happy to leave.
Yes.
And I will say one thing funny, and this is not their fault at all, because they did send an email in the morning about food issues, but we didn't get it till we were getting ready to leave. And so Kim doesn't eat pork. I eat pork. And I said, I can pretty much eat any pork except...
pork belly.
Yes, pork belly. And you're ahead of us. Guess what they served? Pork belly. So, yeah. It was... I wouldn't say it was a bad evening, and I would not say that I would never do it again. I think it was just... It ended up being the mix of people that kind of was challenging. Anyway, enough of that. One of the great things about that evening is just driving, even though we got a little lost, but driving through that beautiful countryside, and I got to see a Highland cow up close. So,
we were where people live. We were not in a touristy area at all.
Yeah.
And we were very close to all the wildlife or farm life.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
animals, sheep.
So, day 3, I think was another highlight, and we took the car and drove to, and now we have to talk about this because prior to leaving Seattle, I kept saying we were going to go to Knockando wool mill, and we've been practicing that is not the correct pronunciation.
Not at all.
It's actually, Kim, do you want to give it a try?
Knockando?
Yes.
Yes.
Knockando. Anyway, we went to visit that, and we had an excellent tour guide named Stella. And the gist of this mill is it was a mill for the people who own crofts, which are farms, small farms. They would have 10 to 12, maybe 15 fleeces. They didn't have the water source to wash and process all that fleece, so they would bring their fleece to this mill, and there used to be hundreds of them. And I think this is the only one of its kind left, I believe.
Yes.
Is what they say.
Well, and what was unique about it is it took the fleeces from the full process of scouring and carding and
Spinning and then weaving.
yes.
And I have put pictures on Instagram, but there is a really interesting machine that still works, but they're not using it today. But that would full the fabric, the woven fabric, and it had teasels on it. These little sharp, pointy, they almost look like, I would say like thistles, but they're actually a teasel.
Yeah.
And that would actually, they keep running the wet fabric through that, and it would full it. That was very interesting. What else do we need to say about that?
Well, it was what I really liked about Knockando. We still are tripping over the name. Is that it was beautifully organized and set up, beautiful grounds and garden. The tour, there were 3 of us that were really into textiles, and so the tour guide could go a little bit deeper, and the questions were really interesting. So, and the tour was very small. There were 6, 7 of us, I think, total. So it was very personal, and we could be very close to the equipment. I think there are days that it's operational, but the day that we happened to have be there, it was not operational. And also, because we had gone to New Lanark, we had a frame of reference to understand the equipment and the process.
Yeah.
But it was a wonderful story from, I'm trying to think of when it started in the early 1800s. And then the families that had owned it and the history of those family and how they had grown and prospered as the processes in the Industrial Revolution came in. So fascinating to see that wealth.
The man who still owned it put it up for sale, and Stella was telling us that 3 university students purchased it and tried to get it going again and were fairly successful. Only one of the students stayed in the business. I believe his name is Hugh Jones, I believe.
I'm not sure.
And because that night I came home and I was looking on YouTube, and they actually have videos where he's interviewed. And when I send this file to Kelly to post, I'll send her a link also to that YouTube video. And there's other ones, but at least to get you to the right place on YouTube to watch the videos and also hear him say the correct pronunciation of the mill. I think it was also, we've had a lot of highlights, but it really was special. I think visiting there, it really was a highlight. And Stella was really nice too, because she knew we had such an interest in fiber arts and are both spinners, that she snuck us some roving.
Yes, she did.
So we have a ball of roving that we get to play with when we get home. Yeah. What else? So then after that we had lunch.
Yes.
And everybody had recommended, and we had seen this online, but everybody recommended a restaurant in Aberlour called the Mash Tun. M-A-S-H, then a second word is T-U-N. And excellent food.
One of the best meals we've had since we've been here.
Yeah. So if you are planning your trip and you're in that town, eat there. It was very good. And then, this is the funny thing, is we go back to the house, and I said, I just need to lie down for a few minutes. We got back to our house maybe 5:30, something like that. I said, I just need to lie down for a few minutes, and finally I hear Kim I laid on the sofa in the living room and I hear Kim coming down the stairs and I said, what is it, like 6:30? And she said, no, it's 8 o'clock. So what we did is we walked back over to got up, feeling kind of groggy, but we walked back over to the Black Isle Brewing Company and we ordered a pizza and had 2 beers each. And very good.
Very good.
Oh, and we split a salad too, I
Yes.
think. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
very good. Day 4.
It was a driving day.
It was a driving day, and what we did is we drove. We had planned this because there's a company called Loch Ness Knitting that we wanted to visit that studio. So what we did is we drove to Loch Ness, and first we drove past where the knitting studio was, and we went up to Alon Dornan Castle and took a tour of that castle.
Fascinating.
Fascinating, and people will probably be familiar with it because it sort of sits on a little point of land out in the loch.
And 3 of the lochs join there. And so it has water all around it and just a little bridge over to it. So it looks like a castle on an island.
Yeah. And it's famous for
Movies like The
movie-
Highlander.
yes,
The
and
Shaw.
well, and it was, and the other one, it's the I can't remember the name of the movie, but it's one of the James Bond movies with Pierce Brosnan where he's driving across the bridge.
Yes.
So then after that we went to
The Loch Ness Knitting.
the Loch Ness Knitting, and that
in
was another.
Dornoch?
Yes, and that was
Dornochshire? Something like that.
something like, and it was another case of getting lost,
Yes.
kind of, or
Yes.
our GPS sending us down some windy
So
little
what
alley.
happens is our GPS has a postal code. And so you have an area. And usually you can find the business in that area. It's small enough. But in a few places like the Croft Dinner House and this, because it was an individual house, there wasn't very good signage to know where to go. And so we have another hotspot wireless thing that we actually type in the address in and then can pinpoint it to the exact location. And Loch Ness Knitting was in a house.
A house, yes. And she had a little tiny sign saying Loch Ness Knitting in the window. But what she specializes in is it's all natural dyes and very interested about reusing. So a lot of her materials for the dyes come from leftovers from a restaurant in town. So coffee and avocado, rice and beans is what she's dyeing with. So we did buy some mini skeins.
There were some with lichen too.
Yes, and so like I remember I got a mulberry and avocado.
Was it mulberry or elderberry? Elderberry flower? I thought.
Oh, I think you're right. I think it was elderberry. And then we got some that are dyed with lichen and rice
Yes.
and beans.
And the rice is kind of like a pinky color,
Yeah.
mauve color, which
Yeah.
I had no idea.
So she's getting materials from the leftovers from the restaurant, and then she's also going out into the local woods and picking up lichen and leaves and things that are falling to dye with. So she had an interesting, it really wasn't, I wouldn't say it was a shop necessarily.
No.
It was more just a card table with some yarn on it, but very interesting and
Lovely lady.
lovely lady and kind of inspiring what she's doing. you
She's
know?
written books on it, so you can find them on Ravelry. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then after that we went to Urquhart.
Arquart?
Urquhart?
Yeah.
We've getting different.
Yeah, the way that we're used to pronouncing things and the way that the locals do are very
Yeah.
different.
Different. But anyway, it's a castle. And it's
More like ruins.
Ruins, yeah, it's a ruin. So we went there and we walked around that, and that was interesting. And then we went back to our Airbnb and kind of rested up. And then we had a fantastic dinner at a restaurant called The Mustard Seed that Gavin, our whiskey guide, had recommended. And we have to talk about what we had. I had Scottish salmon with beautifully cooked on top of a little bed of new potatoes that were sort of smashed, mixed with brown crab. And I don't know what brown crab is. All I know is it's really, really good. It's delicious. And then some broccolini.
Yes.
It was very good.
And then I had a sweet potato tortilla, but it didn't have a tortilla in it.
No, I think it just meant it was flat.
I think it was more like a pie shape, and it had great flavor and chickpeas as well as sweet potatoes, and really good vegan dish, and very flavorful, because that's one of the things we're finding is that the flavoring up north is not the same as it is in the cities, and yeah. It was excellent, and we had nice white wine, and we could walk back to our Airbnb easily.
Yeah, no driving, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we split a apple crumble with custard. And that was very good, because the custard is, it's like a sauce.
Yes.
You know, it was yummy, very good. So I think that's it.
Those are our days in Inverness.
Yeah, we had a great time. We'll talk about we're going to take a break here, and then we can talk about our trip up to John O'Groats and the retreat.
Yes. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. To subscribe to the podcast, visit 2usfiberadventures.com.
Join us on our adventures on Ravelry and Instagram. I am Better in Motion, and Kelly is 100 Projects.
Until next time, we're the 2 U's
Doing our part for World Fleece.